The first part of this demonstration will look at resolve and how we can take input from a provisioning request in order to go out and provision the virtual machines within VMware. But additionally, we're going to do other provisioning tasks like add a DNS record, create a CI, as well as make sure the VMs are patched and that we've installed an agent, we've configured its IP address and host name. So what you see in front of you is our automation designer. Each box refers to a task in this particular process. So the initialization of this process will come from an application form that a user completes. We'll see next. As part of this particular integration, we're going to look at creating a change request. And then for each component in the application request form, we're going to then loop through each one of those in order to first get an IP address from the IPAM solution. We're going to then create the VM from the specified template. If everything is successful with that, we're going to move on down to create the DNS record here. We'll create the CI, and then we'll execute a number of other automations to update the system, set a static IP address and host name. We'll mount a file share, we will install a monitoring agent, and then we're actually going to create a change task that will trigger the next part of this process. So I've gone to the page that's directly attached to that automation and completed my request for the system server names and the types of applications that I would want to install on this, and then I've also selected the template that I would want to use. I will click Submit to execute this. I kept this form very simple and straightforward for this particular demonstration. We could definitely expand it out to be able to request different sized systems, different operating systems, different resources, etc. From here, the automation is now going to begin its process, and we have begun with the initial server. So I've gotten its IP address. Now we notice that some of these boxes are coming back as critical issues. That's actually a good thing in this case because we want to verify that that IP address is not already in use. We also want to make sure that I don't already have a VM with the conflicting name and resource. So now we have begun the process to gather the details for that specified template. We make sure that before we provision it that we also have the capacity available as well. And now the process will run and execute through the next set of steps. There are a number of waits as part of this process. Number one, when you provision a template, we do have to wait for the VM to get created. We'll then power it on. That particular process can then take some time, and then we'll go through the server configurations. But as these things are happening in the background, we're able to see the results reflect from the execution. I will pause here as the automation can take 20 to 30 minutes due to the limited resources on our VMware server. That's kind of the thing that takes the longest as part of this process. But the good news is all I need to do is be able to complete this information, submit it, and Resolve is going to take care of the rest for me. The execution has completed, and now we can see the results of all of the steps that were done as part of the automation process to deploy the actual virtual machines. So here we can see the results from the integration to our IPAM solution, to DNS, and to the CMDB. So for each host, we were able to get a new IP address. We verified that IP address again. We then added that record to DNS and then created the CMDB entry, and so that repeated for each of the particular hosts. If we go look at the results from VMware, we can see that each step along the way we cloned our template to a new VM, and then after the VM was started, we were able to get its DHCP address in order to be able to connect and interact with it. From there, we were able to then start to configure the server. So one of the things we're going to do is configure the network script file to set the new static IP address rather than using its DHCP address. We also then set the host name, and so a lot of these will have switched from its DHCP address to its static IP address. And then finally, for the next iteration, we actually use just the host names themselves, and we go through the process to mount our software directory from the file share. And then finally, we install and configure our SNMP agent in order to monitor the server itself. So we've done that for each of the 6 servers that we have created. Now, along the way, we had created a change request. And so I can click on this particular link, and that's going to take me to the change request that was created as part of the automation process. Now, this change request also has the application deployment information, but we have also added in change tasks for each of the application deployments on each of those new VMs. And so this is where we go into a approval process. So I'm going to go ahead and approve this particular change request. I'm actually going to change the assignment to the Resolve Systems account. And now I can go ahead and save this particular change record. Resolve has now picked up the change request, and we can see that it has changed to work in progress, and the work has started. And so what Resolve is now doing, we can see here from clicking our Resolve dashboard, and that will take us to the actual application deployment itself. And so what the application deployment is going to do is gather the details of that change request. And for each of those change request tasks that we saw, we're going to iterate through it and gather details about the change task in order to determine, are we installing a database or is it another application? And each one of these boxes represents a different automation. And within that automation, we have defined out how to install and configure this particular component of the application. So you can see there are a number of Linux commands, there's also a firewall configuration, and then there's other application configurations that we do. So Resolve is now going through that particular process, and we can see the results as each server goes through and does its configuration. Now I'm going to actually go back to our change request, and I'm going to refresh the content of it. And what we'll be able to see now is that we have this change request tasks where we have completed the first one, which was actually the database installation, and we're currently in the process of deploying the second one. I will pause here as it takes a few minutes to deploy each application on each application server. We can now see that we have completed the change request. And now after I reload the actual form itself to load all the subdata, we can see the work start time and the work end time. So it took just under 20 minutes to deploy this application across the 6 different configuration items. And we can see here that we've gone through all of the application deployment tasks, which were a part of the original change request. Some of these things get added in automatically by the system itself, but we have gone through each of the particular application deployment tasks. Here I can see the system that we're going to deploy to, the particular application that it's on, the fact that we have completed it. And then finally, I can bring up a link to that particular system itself. It is now available, so the GFS Tomcat system. And we have actually just deployed our own automation solution as part of this particular application deployment. From here I can see here's the different servers that we have deployed to for the components that show up in the registrations here. But we have gone from deploying 6 new VMs from a template, and then from there we created the change request, which was then approved, and that enabled the application installation to be executed. Once again, thank you for watching the demonstration of how Resolve can go through a request process here, and we can see the results of the tasks as part of the execution results.